Good to be with you, David.
Well, absolutely. Now, we've done a few interviews before, and I think what we decided is we'll go by first name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Otherwise, all those titles get confusing. Good to be with you. A lot going on post-election. A lot going on besides the election here in New York City on a federal level. I did a piece that I put out today, an op-ed that I put out today that said Democrats' Dilemma, Philosophical Schizophrenia, right? We have this far-left movement that is very real in the Democratic Party. That has been growing. Bernie Sanders, AOC, anti-oligarchs, captured a lot of attention of the young people. You see a lot of cities where you have socialist contingents, socialist mayors being elected. And that far left is at war quietly with what they would call the moderate Democrats, right? Moderate Democrats, the far left believes that's a pejorative term. When they call you a moderate, they're really saying something bad about you.
Exactly.
Right? Early on in my race, it was the far left, like 7 candidates against the moderates who were me and Eric Adams, Mayor Adams. And it was just because we were moderates. Now, first of all, how I became a moderate, I have no idea. I was a crazy liberal all my life, right? Son of a crazy liberal. But the left has shifted so far that, now I am a moderate in there. And Eric Adams was a moderate.
And your father would have been considered a moderate.
He would have been a moderate. He would have been a moderate. Yeah, if you're not a socialist, you're a moderate. But you don't win. You can win a city as a socialist. You can't win a state. You can't win nationally as a socialist. And the socialists are the enemies of the moderates. And they threaten them in primaries, and they push them to the left in primaries. And you're going to see them push the state government now to do a lot of the socialist agenda. And that then hurts the Democratic Party in the general election.
Yes, and the socialists, in reality, have become the bullwether for Republicans. In other words, the Republicans don't have to work as hard these days. The socialists are doing it for them by creating so much havoc and discontent in the Democratic Party that the Republicans, and I have to give them credit, their candidates did win in a lot of places. But in the November elections, I think the public still sees it as an even battle right now between the two parties.
Oh, 100%. Look, I'd go so far as I would give the Democrats an edge in the midterms right now.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you see the Republicans, ironically, have sort of the same problem. They're far right, right? Their MAGA right is wreaking havoc, right? Their irrational right is wreaking havoc. And even Trump is having problems with them, and Trump is their guy, right? So it's like the extreme right generated a response from the Democrats, which is the extreme left, and that fed the extreme left. That pushes the Democratic Party during the primary process because they threaten all the Democrats, and they threaten the Democrats into taking unreasonable positions. And this whole socialist agenda, what frustrated me, one of the things during the campaign, not to talk about the good old days, because there were no good old days, but there was much more rigor in the analysis of the race and the positions. You remember, David, when you would put out a position paper, you were grilled on the details of that position paper, right? And none of that happens anymore. Socialist agenda, what is he proposing? Free buses. All right, first of all, free buses have been tried before in other cities. It didn't work. They became mobile homeless shelters. Number two.
And also, by the way, if I could just jump in, you know who considered free buses and did a lot of research on it? Mayor Bloomberg. in
Yes.
2009 when he was about to run for his third term, but he came to the conclusion that it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. And look, the MTA even said, General Lieber even said, basically, it would take years to study because the revenue from the buses has been pledged to the bondholders. In other words, the MTA is financed by issuing bonds. The bonds are backed by the revenue from the MTA. A big part of the revenue from the MTA are the buses.
And if you're not getting it, then your transportation economics falls apart.
That's right. You would have to find a substitute for the revenue. You'd have to go to the bondholders and see if they would accept that substitute revenue. And you're talking about $700 million. Freeze the rent. The mayor of New York City can't freeze the rent. He has no authority. He appoints people called to the Rent Guidelines Board, but the Rent Guidelines Board has statutory criteria that they have to consider in whether or not to raise the rent, what are the expenses, etc. And the mayor doesn't appoint the Rent Guidelines Board. They have term appointments. So there are holdover appointments, which means he wouldn't even get control of the Rent Guidelines Board for a year or two, depending on how many people Eric Adams supports. David, you're familiar with term appointments. People think you control the board. No, you don't, because you have a lot of holdovers, and you get blamed for the board.
Previous administrations.
Yes.
Now, I'm during the campaign, what you've just offered right now, Andrew, is what you were saying during the campaign. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to go back and research what you were saying, and I think that when people did, they realized that this whole free bus idea was just completely out of context with reality. Why did not the voting public pick up on that? Because it's one thing to have a person who's in office who's ignoring the public. It's another thing to have a candidate that is.
Yeah, David, I'll tell you the truth. I don't know. Look, maybe you could say, well, Cuomo didn't make the case well enough. I've been at this a long time. I talked about it all the time, every chance I got, every editorial board, every reporter. I think part of it is it's boring. Substance is boring. And you can't get it in a tweet, right? It's too complicated for a tweet. And it's boring. So the press doesn't even have the same appetite to cover it. The editorial boards are not what they once were, right? But nobody was interested. It was all stylistic now. Even you go back to the Trump election. When I'm elected, prices will come down. How? Don't worry about it. They will come down.
And they didn't.
Yeah, but he got away with it, It's just a lack of substance, a lack of rigor. And it is frustrating for guys like us who believe in the government part, right? It's not about the politics and running for office. It's about what you can actually do when you're in government. And when you are familiar with government and you believe in government, then you're tempering what you say in a campaign by what you can get done in a government.
Right.
And you're not going to say things in a campaign that you can't get done in a government, right? You're not going to set yourself up
to get the pain that people predicted you would get for pushing these issues in the first place.
100%. 100%. But that didn't happen here. I don't think Zoran was serious about any of it. There were no real government philosophies. It's not new for this wing. Green New Deal, skinny little paper, emissions down to zero, thousands of jobs. Yeah, no, sounds great.
Andrew, I have to tell you this story. It's 1971, and I'm graduating from high school, so it's my senior year. And they had the elections for who was going to be the student body president for the next year. And I had this friend named Stuart. Stuart, I don't even remember his last name to this day, but he was always counterintuitive to what everyone else was doing. Stuart decides he's running for president. He gets up in front of, that must have been 400 people in the high school. And he says, you know something? I'm tired of coming to school at 8 o'clock in the morning. When I get in office, like he had this kind of power, there'll be no classes before 9:15 a.m. And the place goes crazy, screaming. And, of course, the teachers and the principal, they don't know what to do with him. You can't, you can't suspend him. He had a right to say that. But the whole student body loved it. And it actually became an issue after I left, from the friends of mine that was still there. So he didn't get it. But the point is, I think of that because you can get up and say anything now, and there will be a group of people who'll cheer you on, even though in terms of practicality and in terms of process, it's impossible.
100%. 100%.
Thank you, Stuart, wherever you are.
Well, Stuart wins. No classes, free pizza on Friday, right? That wins. And that's what Zoran was saying. Freeze the rent. You're not going to get a rent increase. Yeah, I love that. He goes back to, I don't know if you remember, I ran against a fella. The rent is too damn high.
Oh,
right?
yeah. He was great.
Yeah, the rent is too damn high. Another way of so freeze the rent, right? It's just freeze the rent, free buses, everything free, tax the rich.
And that was the name of his party. The rent is too damn high.
Rent is too damn high. I wouldn't debate him. That was the only thing he would say. You could ask him anything, he'd come right back to rent is too damn high. And it's sad because, look, New Yorkers were concerned. The turnout in this race was remarkable, right? It was record-setting, 2 million people. Why? Because people are really concerned. They're concerned about crime. They're concerned about anti-Semitism.
Before you go forward, would you please repeat for our audience, Andrew, what you told me before the show about the number of people who voted in this last general election?
Yeah. About 2 million people voted, okay? That sets a record. In losing, David, I got more votes than Giuliani, Dinkins, or any mayor since. In losing, all right? More New Yorkers voted for me than voted for them when they won. It just evidences how big the turnout is. And when they say, well, Zoran has a mandate to do what his agenda. First of all, he has no agenda that he can do. Second of all, he had 1 million people basically vote against him. You had basically half the city vote against him in a tremendous turnout. So you have a very divided city right now that he has to try to unify. And he has to come up with an agenda that he can actually do because, and this is where I fault the Democrats, frankly, government is about the doing. Government is about the doing. Ted Kennedy, God rest his soul, Senator Ted Kennedy said something to me I'll never forget. Before I had ever run for office, I was assistant secretary at HUD, and we were driving around Massachusetts. And he said, if you ever run for something, remember this. When people walk into the booth to determine whether or not to reelect you, they have to know one thing you did for them, one thing you did that was a positive in their lives, right? Because government is about accomplishment. And we have forgotten that. What can you name that the Democrats did that really changed your life? You know, Biden passed the CHIPS bill. Okay, where is it? $1 trillion in infrastructure money. And what was built, you know? That's why when I was governor, I focused so much on the actual tangible accomplishments, Moynihan, LaGuardia.
So you could point to them.
Yes. And people
in
know
a future
government.
campaign
Yes,
or
And government works. And I believe in government because I see it doing tangible things. And that's another problem I have with the socialist agenda. You're going to fail at it. There are not going to be free buses. There is going to be no freeze the rent. That is not going to happen. And then voters are going to say, again, I got lied to. Again, promises that never delivered.
And unfortunately, even though the socialist candidate won, the Democratic Party, more so than the Republican Party, will be part of the blame for why things didn't work out. So in other words, you have a Mamdani promising all types of changes that he can't deliver. But when the public finally figures out they're tired of him, then the rest of us who never agreed with him, we're going to go right along with him when they feel politicians never do anything.
100%. 100%. How about this one? How do you finance all these things, Zoran? Well, the corporate tax in Jersey is 11%. Corporate tax in New York is only 7%. We're going to raise the corporate tax in New York to meet Jersey, and that will bring us revenue. Okay.
And also send a number of employees and managers of the corporation to Jersey.
Yeah, because in truth, the Jersey corporate tax is like 7. Except New York's corporate tax is in 11. I'm sorry. New York's corporate tax, you have to add the city corporate tax, which is another 8%.
Andrew, they're playing The Horse by Cliff Nobles. This is back when we were teenagers.
Oh, I guess that means break time.
Yes.
So anyway, how do you pay for all these free things? Just to pick up where we left off. Zoran says the New York corporate tax is about 7%. The Jersey corporate tax is about 11%.
He wanted to raise it to 11.
Raise it to 11. Except the New York tax is not 7. The state tax is 7. The city has a separate corporate tax of about 8. And then you have the MTA tax,
which adds on to the 8.
Yeah, so it's like you're over 20% on the state city corporate tax rate. You're way higher than Jersey. And then his proposal was you raise the corporate rate on corporations all across the state, but you dedicate the revenue, David, to New York City. So you go to the legislature. Yeah. You go to the legislature and say...
I'm sure the state senator from Chemung County will really appreciate that interest of the mayor of New York City.
Well, it would be the former senator from Chemung County.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a non-starter.
Wow. Well, I think that now that we've, kind of passed the election and that's how they've been promoting this, I think it really went back to the beginning of the year. I have to admit to you and this audience, I never heard Zoran Mamdani's name until February of this year when they were talking about who was running in the primary. And when I first heard his name, I thought it was, the 4th and 5th choices who they got on the ballot, but they're not going anywhere. How was he able to do what he did? And in many respects, it gave him I would say, a energy for the general election that I didn't think he had.
Yeah, 100%. The primary was unlike any election I had been involved in. You had like 6 people or whatever it was from DSA, Working Families Party, the far left, right? And they were running against, as I mentioned before, the moderates. I'm a moderate. Eric Adams is a moderate. So it's all of them against the moderates. Then Eric Adams doesn't run, so it's all of them against me.
Yeah.
Don't rank Cuomo. They have ranked choice voting. They're using part of their campaign monies to attack me. So it was literally 6 candidates criticizing me, and we have to go a new way, the socialist way, the left way. Brad Lander was supposed to be the main opponent, if you remember.
Right.
Brad Lander just didn't work as a candidate, and that is the void that Zoran filled. Because Brad Lander,
With Brad Lander's help.
yeah,
as
because
well.
I thought I was planning to run against Brad Lander. He just fizzled, and Zoran had more energy. He was very good on social media and TikTok. His mother's a director. He's an actor. Captured a lot of excitement by the young people. He filled the void that Lander left, and he wins the primary. Also, I did not run my best race in the primary, but you're right. He then had energy coming out and into the general. In the general, it's me on an independent line where, David, you had to search the ballot to find
You
me.
had to go to the one ballot in from the end of the second row.
Yes, yes.
And you know, you could put that in commercials. People get in the booth, they can't find a name. Sometimes they just pick another name and vote for them.
Yeah. And then you had Curtis Sliwa on the Republican line, who I always believed he would drop out because there was no way for him to win. All he could do is be a spoiler and be responsible for Zoran's victory. I couldn't believe that as a Republican, he could live with himself and the Republicans could live with him as the person who elected Zoran, which is exactly what happened. Sliwa gets out, David. He only gets about 7 points, by the way, Sliwa.
That's what he got, 7 points. After all of this ridicule of people didn't stand behind him and they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And he's got relatives calling the station because he didn't get the same amount of time. They actually called the station to ask for equal time when the individual who they thought got more time was on another station.
Yeah, no. Well, his 7 points, all the noise, all the bluster, he gets 7 points, which is an embarrassment and really diminished the Republican Party. That they now 7 points in a mayoral election. But if he had dropped out, I would have won. I'm convinced, because I would have gotten that 7. I would have been about a point from Zoran, but it would have changed the whole dynamic. Every day, Curtis was out there with the clown show, criticizing me more than Zoran on the debate stage. He took up a lot of time with his antics. And look, equal time. WABC made Sliwa. Sid Rosenberg, by the way, made Sliwa. They gave him tremendous coverage. And again, talking about election coverage, nobody ever mentioned that Sliwa has been a total fraud for decades. I think Sid Rosenberg was still in Florida when it turned out that the Guardian Angels and Sliwa made up a whole raft of stories of rescues that they did that turned out not to be true, that Sliwa said he was kidnapped by the New York Police Department and held, and then admitted that wasn't true. He runs a not-for-profit organization that says donate, tax deductible. It's not even a not-for-profit organization legally. So it was a total fraud. But I believe, he cost me the election. I believe if he did not run, I would have won.
I mean, he had this incredible idea that he'd gotten 28% in the race against Eric Adams in 2021. So what he's saying is, with Adams out of the way and now 4 or 5 candidates, his 28% could be looking good, because if you have 4 candidates and they all got the same, that'd be 25%. Anybody that gets over that has a chance to win. But at the same time, it wasn't like he presented any issues of any deep thought or actions he's taken in the past that improve the quality of life for New York citizens. It's just that he likes to be noticed. He likes to walk around with capes on and the whole thing, and say things about everybody, when in fact he got 7. He got 7. Even the Jets had more than 7 yesterday, Andrew.
Yeah, and then you hear people have come to me offering millions to get out of the race. Name them. Name them. If that actually happened, name them. He said, I wish I was wired. No, you don't have to be wired, right?
Remember that TV show back from the 60s, The Millionaire, and every week he would give $1 million to someone?
Yes.
And maybe that's where Curtis
they're offering me.
got the money after all these years.
Name the person. I should have been wired. No, he's a fraud. He's always been a fraud.
It's interesting because you're the first person I've actually heard raise that publicly. Nobody really said that in the campaign, but that has been the case. There was one time they got the not-for-profit status back after some work that they did, and then they just didn't have enough people to support it. But the idea of yelling at people and calling other people on the stations traitors, and they didn't stand behind him. He mad at John Catsimatidis. He'll never set foot in this station again. All of this aside, he got 7. Like if he'd gotten 30% and someone beat him out and he wants to get upset and be acrimonious for a couple of months, that's one thing. But 7 is not really a voting plurality that you should be talking about. And the 28% 4 years ago, the only one that got fooled by it was him.
Yeah. No, it was a joke. I blame Sid Rosenberg, just for the record, especially since I'm sitting in his seat with his headphones.
Yes.
What do you see going forward now on the Republican side in New York, Devin?
Well, it is very interesting because I think that the Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was considered to be the Republican candidate. It would be a rematch for the Republicans with Hochul, where Lee Zeldin came within 5 points back in 2022. But there's a new development, and that development is that Bruce Blakeman has stuck to his guns and decided that he's going to run for governor in the Republican primary. Now, choice and life and those issues always illuminate themselves in a Republican primary. But if Blakeman were to win, it would really, I'd say, be a toss-up between himself and Governor Hochul. And I think Governor Hochul could win, but they're going to throw the issues of the type of support that she's gotten and the relationship that she has had with groups that are far left than even a Democratic candidate would usually be.
Just to follow up on what we were talking about, crystal ball, what happens with the Democrats, Republicans. I think a lot of it is going to be what the Democrats do in response to Zoran's agenda. Now, the legislature supports him. The legislature loves to raise taxes. If they raise taxes, I think it's a serious problem. We talked about the comparison to Jersey on the corporate tax. You raise the personal income tax 2%, which is what they're talking about. You have the highest personal income tax in the United States of America. And anyone who says people don't leave based on tax rate, they're smoking something funny. Post-COVID, there's more mobility, there's remote work. We know we are losing people. We know we're losing high earners. That is inarguable. It's in the numbers. You make us the highest personal income tax in the United States, you'll see more people heading for Florida, et cetera.
And especially, Andrew, the fact that they don't have to go as far as Florida. They can go across the river to New Jersey. They can go to Connecticut. They can go to places where they can still take advantage of all of the great elements of the city and not really have to pay the taxes.
100%. So if the legislature gets its way, if the governor folds to the legislature, which she does not have to, by the way, the dynamic between the legislature and the governor is very interesting. The Constitution calls for a strong governor. Governor Paterson actually litigated that and proved that the governor has near total power over the budget process. But depending on what they do with Zoran, if they raise taxes, they're not going to address crime. If anything, I think crime is going to get worse. Zoran is against adding the 5,000 police officers that I supported and Eric Adams supported, and Commissioner Tisch at the time.
You know what's interesting about the 5,000 police officers? Is that he wants to keep the number at 34,000. He doesn't want to add the 5,000. There are going to be 4,000 retirees at the end of the year. So even if he had agreed to the 5,000, they were only going to get net 1,000 more police officers. And it just shows his lack of understanding about how government works and how you try to maintain a police force that can protect the public.
Yeah, well, or if you want to be Machiavellian about it.
Let's do that.
His position as a socialist, you read the Democratic Socialist platform, they are against the police. He said the police are racist, they are corrupt, they are a threat to public safety. The Democratic Socialist agenda says cut the police budget eventually down to zero. So they want to reduce police, which is another thing that makes them unelectable, I think, outside of these far left areas. But so he may just be following the socialist agenda, reduce the number of police, because you're right, it's the highest attrition rate in history. I'm surprised Commissioner Tisch didn't make that one of the conditions for her to stay, because she supported the 5,000 police. But how that plays out, I think, will determine the level of vulnerability in the general. Blakeman Stefanik is pro-life. I believe Blakeman is closer to pro-choice. Remember, the only Republicans to win statewide were pro-choice.
George Pataki.
100%. I don't believe you win as a pro-choice candidate. Pro-life candidate. One other issue I want to raise, and they're yelling at us because we have callers who are calling in. What happened at Central Synagogue, David, with the demonstrators, which is to use a nice word, was appalling to me. There's a story that there's a website that is offering rewards.
It's shocking.
I'll tell you what's scary. This starts as basically a pro-Gaza issue, right? And Zoran pushed it very hard. What it had to do with the mayor of New York, I have no idea. I didn't know the mayor did foreign policy. But pro-Gaza, anti-Israel, Israel is the oppressor of Palestinians. That's where it starts. You now have a peace treaty, plus or minus. it's now just turned into anti-Semitism. It's just anti-Jewish people living in New York, and the silence in our response is deafening.
I always knew we worked well together.
Yes, that was. Let's go to callers. We have Susan, who is calling about charter schools. Susan, are you there?
Yes. Hey, I'm really pleased to speak to the two of you because I really felt like education should have been a much bigger issue in the mayoral debates, which was barely spoken about. I mean, crime, yes, that's obvious, but the New York City budget, you're very aware, $115 billion, $40 billion of it is for education. And what are we getting? Only 1/3 about, even maybe less, read at or above grade level. And almost 1/3 is basically illiterate, so far below grade level. 1/3 for $40 billion a year, that's almost 40,000 a student. So I feel that we have to look at things that have been successful, especially, minorities are disproportionately negatively affected. But you look at the Success Academy, which I'm sure you're both familiar with, the charter school in Harlem.
Absolutely.
And the thing about charter schools is those kids are picked through a lottery. They're not like the elite schools, you have to have all these great tests. And that Success Academy in Harlem proved that children, when the schools are, they don't have to follow the union work rules, that those kids achieve the same as the smart, very expensive schools in Scarsdale. They had the same results. And Governor Cuomo, I listened to every word of that debate. You were the only one that said you wanted to raise children's, educational levels. And I think that has to become an issue. I'd love to see the two of you form something with now, because there's going to be block grants coming to the state. School choice works because it forces the public schools to do better. Well, charter schools are public schools. So I want you to say, how you would, form some kind of coalition to this is an actual scourge. It's a travesty.
Yeah.
We have so many illiterate children with what we,
Yes,
so
Susan.
anyway.
Yeah, look, I don't think either of us are going to disagree with you. It should have been a bigger issue in the election. It's one of the reasons why we lose young families. They move out of the city when they have to put their kid in school because they want a better education. Failing schools, I said, should be replaced by charter schools. And Zoran is against the mayoral control, which is really shocking.
Since he's going to be the mayor.
Yeah.